Second question of the evening, and this one is from Ghulam Nabi Adam.
Hello. Once we have left the EU, how would your party ensure we have the workers on the skills we need to make the UK a success?
Thank you. How would we have the workers and skills we need to make the UK a success after Brexit? Paul Nuttall.
Very easily, because we then can control our own borders. And when people went out last year and voted on June the 23rd, they didn't just vote to control borders, they voted to reduce immigration as well. Because, you know, last week it was announced that a city the size of Hull came to this country.
That wasn't on the ballot paper, though.
Hang on, hold on. A city the size of Hull came to this country net. That's going to be a Birmingham over a 5-year period. It's unsustainable. What we need to do is we need to reduce immigration, and we do it by having an Australian points-based system. So if you've got the skills that this country needs, yes, please come here and work. But beyond that, we have to get the population under control, because if we carry on the road we're on, we'll have a population of 80 million by the middle of this century. Now, you just think what will happen. There'll have to be a huge school building programme. There'll have to be new hospitals, new motorways, a new rail network, new houses. We're already having to build a house every 7 minutes simply to keep up with the numbers of people coming to this country.
Okay,
we reduce immigration, have a points-based system, it will be good for the economy and it will be good for social.
Can I just take this?
Last week,
he needs to be picked up on that lie.
A middle-aged Asian man on his way home from work was abused and called racist names and called a terrorist. He had just finished 50 hours saving lives after the Manchester bomb. He was a doctor. And that is what happens when you demonise immigrants. That is what happens when the language... Does immigration cause pressures that need to be met? Do we need to invest more in infrastructure to make sure we invest the taxes that immigrants pay to make sure that we provide for everybody? Of course, yes. Do we need, as I'm afraid the Prime Minister has done for the last 7 years, first as Home Secretary and then Prime Minister, set completely balmy, bogus targets that she fails to meet every single year? No, we don't. What we need is an immigration policy that is good for Britain, good for our businesses, good for our farmers, good for tourism, good for our health service, a wise immigration policy, good for Britain, not a concerted immigration policy written to appease UKIP.
Tim,
Paul Nuttall, I'd like to get Amber. Does that mean you will make no promises at all on cutting immigration?
What will happen on leaving the European Union is that we cease to be members of the single market and therefore free movement ends. What we're saying is that every EU national that is resident in this country must be given permanent rights of residence here and not blocked for it by this government. And secondly, that we would ask, as we've already done in opposition, that all European governments do the same for British nationals that are living there. And that we recognise the massive contribution made by people to this country who have come from all over the world, as well as from Europe, to our health service, our education, our industries, our universities and our science.
If both of the things you said are a different point from the one I put to you, which is, would you make any promise on cutting immigration?
What I would say is we will have a fair and managed migration system that is based on the needs of this country and the rights of family reunion.
What is fair?
Fair is where you bring people in when they've got jobs to come to, or it's necessary for them to be working here, or we need them to assist in the economy. That is fair, but it's also important...
So immigration will go up, Jeremy?
It's also important that we maintain the links of universities with universities across Europe. This government, under Theresa May, sent vans around Brent telling people to go home, has refused to allow refugee children in. I think we need to...
You have campaigned for more immigration to Wales, to get Wales the workers it needs. In your manifesto, did you not say that, that you wanted a visa system for Wales so that you can attract the workers you need, which means that you don't feel Wales has the workers it needs at the moment?
We want to maintain our economy. We want to make sure that...
So you need more workers. You need more workers from outside Wales.
Well, we're quite happy with the ones we've got.
So why do you need a visa system to attract more workers to Wales then?
Because Theresa May is going to end freedom of movement, and that brings specific risks to the Welsh economy and the Welsh NHS.
So you may need more workers to come to Wales in the future from outside.
We want to keep the ones we've got.
Okay.
But can I just make this point
how does that square with
UKIP?
most people in Wales voting for Brexit?
Sorry?
How does that square with most people in Wales voting for Brexit?
Well, UKIP has just claimed that people voted to leave the European Union, and in so doing, they also voted to curb immigration. I don't think we can read that into the result. Some people may well have voted to curb immigration, but there was only one question on the ballot paper, and immigration wasn't on it. And I'm afraid that UKIP keep using this issue. They want to whip up people's hatred, division, and fear, and that's why they talk about immigration all the time.
I've got to come back on that. Right.
Stop lying about immigration.
Listen. This isn't about immigrants, it's about government policy. And the government have got it wrong time and time again. Amber, for example, her party have said in 3 manifestos now that they're going to get immigration down to the tens of thousands. You know, it's Jack and Ori. Oh. It's not going to happen. Jeremy won't give you a figure because under Labour, immigration will go up. There's only one party on this platform tonight who will see real cuts of immigration, which is, by the way, is what the majority of British people want.
We've seen
poll after poll shows it time and time again.
From the Nuffield study, that you're looking at £1 billion additional cost to our National Health Service because the government's bungling of the deal with Europe, which means that you'll have thousands of thousands of pensioners from Europe, British pensioners, returning to the United Kingdom.
Can I just say, I think this debate shames and demeans us all. I don't think there's anyone in this room or anybody watching this debate from Cornwall to Caithness who does not understand the positive contribution that people have made to this land who've come from the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And demonising those people is totally unacceptable. Scotland's experience, Scotland's problem, has never been immigration, it's been immigration. Now, it may well be the case that there are different realities in different parts of the UK. I accept that. But in Scotland, we value the contribution of people who've come to our land. We value refugees who've sought refuge in our country. And there is much, much more that we should do to make sure that people are able to stay in Scotland. But we should also be able to protect people who've come there.
Okay, would you put
so the first thing that I would do,
any upper limit on immigration to Scotland?
The first thing that I would do is make sure that every EU citizen who is here is guaranteed the right to stay. It is totally unacceptable that this Tory government hasn't been prepared to give them the guarantee, the promise that they can stay. I think that's totally unacceptable.
Yes. Caroline, and then I'll get Amber Rodgers.
Michelle, just the last thought. If it is perfectly possible to have different immigration policies in countries such as Canada and Australia, who have different policies between different provinces in their country, it's perfectly possible to have different immigration rules for different parts of the UK, and that's what the SNP supports.
Right, and I asked you about the question about what upper limit you'd put on it, which you haven't answered.
Well, at the present time, our problem is we're losing people. I don't know how many people saw the reports last week. The issue for us is people are now leaving, and that will have a detrimental impact on our NHS and our public services.
Well, on the subject of the right of EU nationals who've made their lives here in good faith to stay here, I just think it is unbelievably cruel to be using those lives as bargaining chips in these negotiations. The government right now could be saying those people should be able to stay right now. But I want to be able to make the case proudly for free movement. I think free movement has been the most wonderful gift, the ability to travel and work and live and love in 27 other member states, and for them to come here. And I have to say I am sorry that the Labour Party now doesn't support that, because I think our country is enriched by people coming from other countries. I think that the Britain that I love is a confident, outward-facing country, recognising that migration makes a massive positive contribution. And I think right now we have people like Paul and his hate-filled rhetoric will make people feel, that makes people feel as if the reason that they can't get a leg on the housing ladder, or the reason they can't see a GP, is because of migration. It is not because of migration, it is because successive governments haven't invested enough in our public services. Okay. If you are in a queue, if you are trying to see someone in the NHS, if you're trying to see someone in the NHS, you are more likely to find a migrant actually treating you as a doctor than ahead of you in the queue.
Okay. Jeremy Corbyn, could you respond to the point on giving up on freedom of movement?
The problems that we have of exploitation of workers in this country and groups of workers that have been brought in wholesale from lower-paid economies in Central Europe is a serious one. Those people are themselves grossly exploited. They're brought here to undermine existing pay and working conditions and create... Hang on, wait, can I finish? That will make the situation worse in any community where that takes place. I was demanding that we have a proper regulation whilst we were still members of the European Union before the referendum. That whole strategy has to stop. There has to be a managed migration that isn't designed to undermine working conditions in this country.
We are now seeing the Labour Party,
and a lot of people make a great deal of money out of the poverty of those people.
For years, I am astonished that the Labour Party is now aping UKIP in using the same arguments about immigration. The single European market really matters to all of us right across the UK.
Did you not notice there was a referendum?
People really matters too. Why don't you stand up to the Tories and say, we want to remain within the single European market because it matters to jobs of people from Britain and the rest of Europe who live in the UK.
What we're negotiating...
Speak louder than words. And what we have is lots of rhetoric around here about helping, for example, those EU nationals who live here, who raise their children here, who work in universities like this, who serve in our hospitals. But when it came to the vote in the House of Commons, the Labour Party did not show up. In the Lords, they instructed their people to vote against the Liberal Democrat amendment, which would have guaranteed that right to remain for EU citizens. It is a stain on our nation. We have not allowed them to remain.
Respond. Amber.
What is chaotic, Amber, is you and UKIP arm in arm. It is a sickening prospect. And you stood on a platform just about a year ago saying that you thought that Britain would be safer, stronger and better off in the EU.
You did.
Now, were you wrong then or are you wrong now? Because we can't trust you on this. You are now hitching your wagon to UKIP.
You said you were